I'm going to share my journey with you, but I think one thing you'll see quite clearly is that, and it's something we all need to deal with every day, is how we think. And that has probably been the most profound change in my life since my accident, which I'll take you through, is how I actually think. And the impact it's had on my life in terms of pushing the boundaries, pushing my personal boundaries of what I believe is possible. And that's a journey that I'm on. But I've also made a decision that I want to be relevant in life. So what I'm going to show you is really focusing on the impossible solo ultra-endurance events that I do on an annual basis. And I'm going to start off by showing you a video, which is about 5 minutes. Then I'm just going to take you through the first 2 years of my journey, and then I'm going to share with you what I just did at the Alps this year, which was a world first, something I'm very proud of. And I would like to then leave the stage with you being challenged in terms of where you are at, the goals that you've set yourself. Do you really believe that is your ultimate? Are you not perhaps just maybe limiting yourself a little bit? And just try and push those boundaries. So I just want to leave you then with some food for thought. What made that tour something I'll never forget is quite simply that I was told it would not be possible. There wasn't anybody that was going to put money on the table that I would pull it off. Simply because, with the extent of the injuries in the short period of time that I had, I was just given no chance that I would be ready that quickly to go and do that. And not just physically, but also mentally. Overcoming that trauma, overcoming the fear of falling, and having to descend down a mountain at that type of speed, knowing what can happen if it goes wrong. But when I was in hospital and the surgeons came around, because that's all I wanted to know really was, will I ride a bike again? I've been doing it since I was 12. That's who I am. Yes, I had a great career and everything, and I thought life was great. I thought I was living my best life. Certainly I was at that stage. But I quickly realized how fast everything can fall apart. And when you're in that situation, the only things that really matter is your health, is your family, your friends. Everything else is replaceable. And we chase these things on a daily basis, what we want to accomplish, what we want to acquire, etc., etc. And when you're in that situation, it really doesn't actually matter. You can always get it back. I needed to get back on the bike. And that gentleman that's sitting there at the top with the ventilator, Dr. Marco, he came to see me in hospital. He sat with me. And that was after the other surgeons came to talk to me and explained my injuries and everything. I said, you're going to have to reconstruct your shoulder blade, and the way your ribs had broken and everything else and all the complications around it. It means you won't be able to control the bike again. So he came and he sat with me, and I was not in a good space. This was just after I left ICU after 9 days. And, I'm in a foreign hospital. My brother came through from Holland, so he was there fortunately. But very few people spoke English. The pain was excruciating, you can just imagine. And I was not in a good space. And at that stage, all that was in my mind was, why did this happen? What am I going to do now? And I was having a big fat pity party, to be quite honest with you. And he said something to me which I will never forget. He said to me, Grant, just remember this. You survived death. There's a reason you are here. And he left that evening. We spoke for about an hour. He explained everything to me, what happened on the road that day. That's exactly where I hit the rock. You can see it just on the side there. And when he left that night, I lay in hospital and I started thinking. And I think the big change was I started thinking forward. And I took my mind off where I was. And I started to think, what can I do with this? I've got a second chance at life here. I can make a difference. And that's where I decided I want to get back when I can finish this race. And I want to do it the next year, and I'm going to do it for charity. I'm going to raise money for kids. And I started thinking about how to do it. So that seed was planted right there in hospital. The ambulance picked me up at the airport, took me home. And once the ambulance left, for the first time I was on my own since the accident. And I lay there. And all I had was that vision. I didn't know how I was going to get it done. On the left, you can see the extent of the injuries, the way my ribcage fractured, and I still look like that today. My shoulder blade is somewhere here behind my armpit, which means I don't have full use of my shoulder. But I needed to get a medical team that I could work with because I already had my timelines. I was very, very specific in terms of what I needed to accomplish by when. I needed to get on the bike 1 February 2014. I got back to South Africa on the 16th of August, I think it was, 2013. Not much time. And I knew I was going to need quite a bit of surgery. I didn't have a collarbone, and I didn't know to what extent they had fixed my leg. Would that be okay? All that. So I got to 4 surgeons. 3, the first 3 that I saw said to me, forget it. We can't We just can't do that many surgeries on you. We can't get you ready so quickly. I got to the fourth one, and he looked at me and he said, you know what? I think we can do something here. He bought into my vision. He saw what I wanted to accomplish. He saw I had a bigger purpose behind it. And we started working, and we got a whole medical team, literally, that worked with me. They all bought into this idea that this guy wants to go back within 1 year, go and do that race. And I had a pulmonologist to sort out my lungs. I had a dietitian. I had a trainer. I had a physio, biokineticist, and I had the 2 surgeons, upper limb, lower limb. We did the 4 surgeries, and we started working. And I had to go for rehab. I went 3 times a week, not just once a week. Everything to get myself as ready as quickly as possible. And by the time I got to the start line, which is the event that you saw on the video, that is down in Bourg d'Oisans. If you watch the Tour de France, you've got Alpe d'Huez, which you would have heard of before. And that is right at the bottom of that climb. And the race starts there, but then you go over the Col de Glandon, which is 22 kilometers. You go over the Col de Telegraph, which is 12 Ks, 4 Ks downhill. Then you hit the Col de Galibia, 17 Ks, to the top, 2,700 meters altitude. You descend for 30 kilometers, and then you hit that town, and then you have to go up to the top to finish. So I'm standing there. I've only trained since 1 February. The furthest I've ridden in that time was 109 kilometers. The highest climb I rode was out, if you don't know South Africa, up in the mountains here. The longest climb you have is about 15 kilometers. That's the most I could do. But I stood there and I was absolutely terrified because it's going to be the first time I'm riding with other people, the first time I'm in a race, the first time I'm riding up a mountain of 20 kilometers plus, the first time I'm going to have to go down the other side. I was absolutely terrified. And I was standing there, my right arm was still so weak I couldn't carry a bag with it. I stood there and I just reminded myself, Grant, what did you do when you got back to South Africa? You had a vision. You kept your eyes on where you wanted to go. And the beauty with that is once you keep your eyes there, it takes you away from where you are. And we immediately started planning this year. And my thinking was I want to double every year. So the first tour was 170 odd kilometers. We doubled it up to 24 hours. And I started thinking, what if I do 2 days? Will I be able to ride 1,000 kilometers, 2 days through the Alps? I knew I would have to be mentally super strong. This ride would probably be, 60% physical. The rest of the ride would just be pure mental strength, just working through it. Giving up was not an option. I had a big support team. We had 11 guys follow me for those 2 days, 2 cars, 2 motorbikes, cameramen. And the last meeting we had before I started, I said to them, guys, failure is not an option. I don't know how my mind's going to respond in the second day, through the second night. I don't know how I'm going to react. If I start getting cranky, all that. If I want to get off the bike, put me back on. Do not allow me to get off the bike. Don't allow me to stop. Because I knew what I was in for. But failure was not an option. We were all on the same page, and that to me was very, very important. But we knew what the risks were. This ride involved riding 400 kilometers at night, of which almost 200 was descending in the dark. Very, very dangerous, of which half of it would be in the second night. So we prepared really well. We tried to cross all the T's and dot all the I's. I had a car behind me every time I descended. There was always a motorbike ahead of me. The problem is the car couldn't keep up with me, especially through the corners. So I would keep catching up with the motorbike. It was a fantastic experience, absolutely incredible experience, but very, very risky nonetheless. But it was a controlled risk that we took. But I was prepared to do that, simply because failure was not an option. The next morning, we got to the summit of the Col de Galibia. That was the highest point, the same one where I took the selfie 2 years before then. And we stopped and we got the whole support team together quickly. The crucial thing here for me, that is a team that you're looking at there. And every single one of them, on the 2 guys on the left are the Frenchmen, my mates from the Alps. They were in the one car. My brother, his wife, my friend, and my nephew, and the one motorbike pilot. They all believed 100% that I would pull it off. There were no doubters there. I was not prepared to have someone come with me on this journey if they didn't believe that I would pull it off. We were all on the same page. They all knew exactly what they had to do in terms of nutrition, when I needed what. We were very strict on that because that was the one thing that would have stopped me from pulling this off if I don't eat correctly. If you ride that long, you lose time. You lose track of what you've eaten when. So that was after about 320 kilometers. It was a very, very tough first night, headwinds, and I was a third of the way, and I was thinking, I remember standing up there thinking, you're here now, you're in it. You just got to keep going. Don't look back. Don't lose focus. Just stay with what you're doing. And approaching the halfway mark, the Col de Madeleine, which is an absolute monster of a climb, 22 kilometers, very, very steep, extremely difficult mountain to ride up. And I was just shy of 500 kilometers. My nephew, 1 kilometer from the summit, he was waiting for me. Oh, he saved my life. When I saw him, I thought, man, I was worried I was not going to get to the top. It was that difficult for me. The heat was excruciating. And he just ran up with me, poured water over me, encouraged me. The rest of the support team was there, and they helped me get to the top. But I got off the bike, and I thought, I must lie down. I need to just lie down. I'm really overheating here. And I was very concerned about it. My heart rate was very high. I couldn't get my breath down. And I sat in the car. That's my brother there, and he spoke to me, and he just got me to refocus. He said to me, Grant, remember what you're doing here. Focus on where you're going. You've got a nice long 30-kilometer descent now. Then you're riding into the night. It's going to cool down. You're going to be okay. I was just thinking, how am I going to stop getting so hot? What am I going to do? And, I feel like I can't ride anymore. And I sat in the car for about 10 minutes, had a Coke, had a sandwich, left the doors open so the wind could blow through. But he just spoke to me, and he just got me to recenter, to refocus. Look at where you're going. Don't look at where you are. And that to me was so important. And that support there was vital for me. So I started riding into the night. That was on the second night. I had to do about 170 kilometers of undulating road before I got to the next mountain. And that felt like forever. But what I did in that time was I just enjoyed the experience. The countryside was incredibly beautiful. I kept looking around everywhere. All these little towns have got little fountains. I would stop and pour some water over me. I really enjoyed the experience. When going gets tough, we tend to be really hard on ourselves sometimes. And we get so focused. But we need to also just catch a breath and have some fun. Enjoy the experience. And I really used that opportunity of just cruising along, riding into the night, knowing that there's a lot of pain still waiting for me. But I really enjoyed that experience. The next day continued. I finished at 4 in the afternoon, somewhere around there. In that morning, the pain levels became incredible, especially on my feet and so on. But what I've learned to do from the previous year and from training is I really believe your mind can override your brain's impulses in terms of pain. I'm sure there's guys here that know a lot more about that than what I do. But practically, for me, it was quite simple. The pain got so bad at times. I mean, that pain threshold would last like 2 hours climbing up a 20-kilometer mountain. If you imagine I've been riding 35 hours, you're not feeling very good at that point. All I wanted to do was get off the bike. I wanted to sleep. I wanted to stop the pain. But what I did is I took my mind off how I was feeling, and I focused on what I was thinking. And what I was thinking was what I've been through to get here, the pain I endured from my accident, the rehabilitation, all that stuff that I went through back then. That was much worse than what I'm feeling now. And I've learned to literally override those impulses that I felt that I can't go on. And it really did help me. I actually got through it, and you ride through that pain. And that's where your mind is so incredibly powerful in terms of what you're thinking and the effect it has on your body. I'm sure you all will agree with me, but that's practically how I applied it to get through that ride. Guys, this is how you ride a bike when you can't feel your nuts. Sorry. Honestly, I couldn't sit on the saddle anymore. This was descending, I think, the second or third last mountain. It just became excruciating. So I would just sit on the top tube and just go downhill like that and just try and get some relief. So I reached the finish line, and I crossed, well, if I call it a finish line, that was a town where we planned on finishing. A little bit shy of 1,000 kilometers, I think probably through, we mapped the whole thing out on Google Earth, so we lost a couple of Ks here and there. But I rode it much quicker than what I thought I would. I ended up riding 46 hours and 17 minutes with only 25 minutes sleep. My total elapsed time was just shy of 50 hours. So the total stop time in my ride was actually very, very short, something I'm really, really happy with. So I finished there, and I just put my hands up and I said, thank you, God, I'm alive, number one. I can ride a bike, and I can make a difference. And that, to me, is the three important things, So it was a fantastic experience, but we celebrated our success that day. Everybody in town was there at one restaurant, and we all celebrated. And it was a celebration of life, a celebration of what's possible when you really believe, a celebration of what you can accomplish when you get people around you that have the same vision, that are also prepared to take the limits off, and really just go for it and believe that we can pull it off. That's what we celebrate, and then, of course, the money we raised for underprivileged kids. That's what I want to leave with you. I want to encourage you. Go and look at what are your goals for yourself personally and also in your team or in your environment, and just revisit and see, can you perhaps up the bar a little bit? Is there room to up it a bit? I'm quite sure you'll find, yes, there is. Take the boundaries off. Push the boundaries. Take the limits off. Step out. Make sure there is no comfort zone in there anyway. I think Richard Branson said, if your dream doesn't keep you awake at night, it's not big enough. I'm already losing sleep over next year. It's a training that's the hard part, not actually doing it. But we're going to do it. I believe it's possible. So I want to encourage you, go and revisit where you're at and push the boundaries. Step out and do something you've never done before. And the people you work with, push them to do the same. You'll be amazed what you can accomplish if you really believe and you get the right people around you.